Hey guys, welcome to another GameXplain discussion. I'm your host, Andre Seegers, and this time we're joined by Ash Paulson to discuss a new controller patent by Nintendo. So let's get started. Alright, Ash, so this came out last night. Someone on NeoGAF, a Disorienter specifically, found a patent from Nintendo that disclosed some interesting details. And I also want to give thanks to Taker666, also from NeoGAF, who actually did a really good job dissecting this and pointing out some small details about the patent. But basically, if you boil it down, it looks like Nintendo has patented a new controller type device, so either a handheld or a new controller for the NX. It looks like a gamepad in the patent image that will have essentially scrollable triggers. So where the L and R buttons are on pretty much any controller, they will be like scroll wheels instead, like the type you would find on your mouse. So they would be clickable, they'd be scrollable, and going off the patent, they would also have like force feedback as well. So it sounds like, for instance, that they actually may have momentum as well. So basically, if you scroll something quickly, it may continue to scroll, and then the game can also lock it too. So if you reach like the edge, like if you're scrolling down the web page and reach the end, theoretically the scroll wheel could lock and you couldn't scroll it anymore. So this to me sounds like a really interesting idea. It sounds like such a Nintendo idea to have. Of course, it is just a patent, so it may not end up going anywhere. But let's assume that it will. What do you think about this, Ash?
Yeah, I agree. It's a very Nintendo idea to have. I could think of a number of interesting applications for it. First of all, what I want to say is that between this and the previous patent that came out recently from Nintendo, it does seem as if this is an NX controller type device, then it does seem as if there will either be Wii U support built in, or that they are, planning for there to be Wii U support. Either way, I mean, there have been multiple references now, patent-wise, to a screen in the controller where the NX is concerned. Mm-hmm. So it does seem like, that idea is not going anywhere soon in terms of the Wii U's legacy and software. It does seem like it's going to continue. In terms of the actual scroll, the scroll functionality on the shoulder buttons, yeah, I mean, what you said about the web page is certainly viable. I was thinking something like either first-person shooters or something like, like maybe let's say Metroid Prime 4, for example, where if you're, for precision aiming, you usually hit the R button in a lot of shooters to shoot. So, I could see that for precision aiming, slightly moving your finger from left to right on the R button to, slightly aim left or right when you're aiming. I think it'd be pretty cool. And even the article I'm reading about it is talking about using the scroll wheel to flick through an inventory, such as in a Zelda game, for example. So, I can see a number of useful applications for this.
Yeah, no, actually, those are all good ideas, and I had a bunch come to me while just thinking about what they could use it for, and it seems like an idea that, assuming it works, which I imagine it would, it seems like such a simple idea, like, why hasn't it been done before? And it seemed like something, too, that would have been perfect for, like, the Steam controller, where they were trying to bring, the essence of PC controls to a controller you can hold. And it's kind of surprising that Nintendo is seemingly beating them to the punch here, because it seems to make a ton of sense, whether, as you mentioned, using it as, like an item select, where you can, quickly scroll through the lists, or I had a few ideas here, like, if you're playing, like, a Star Fox flying game, where you can use it to control the exact rotation of your ship.
Oh, yeah.
I had an idea they could have a game where you control like two bridges, and the wheels control the whether you're raising or lowering the bridge, and like so you can raise it for like boats going underneath and lower it for traffic. I mean, it's not a great idea. I'm just throwing out examples there we could use it for. So yeah, I don't know. Like, I'm actually really excited about this idea. Like, it seems like it has a lot of potential for controller, because anyone who uses a mouse probably uses a scroll wheel all the time. It is a godsend when it comes to UI. And I'm sure it'd be fantastic as for UI in a new console or handheld from Nintendo. But when applied to a games application, it gets even more exciting. I guess going off of that, we have seen it used in PC games, of course, such as in that manner. But I would love to see what Nintendo can do with it, especially if they are implementing actual force feedback, and it doesn't sound like it's just rumble. Like, it sounds like it'll actually control the way it rotates, which would be kind of insane if they actually go that far with it. I don't know if they will or not, but that sounds like it would add a lot of complexity.
Yeah, I mean, you and I both are playing Super Mario Maker right now, and just with that game alone, I can think about a million different ways a scroll wheel like that could be used. So
the moving platforms, you can control the rate that or the direction the rate they move at.
Yeah, exactly. So I mean, like you said, this is actually something I'm kind of excited about when I think about it. So I hope that it's something that does find its way into the NX's functionality in the end. It does seem like there are a lot of really useful potential applications.
It really does, because I think it makes a lot of sense. Like, I think it makes I've always found it a little bit odd having two sets of triggers, and I think this having one of them be a scroll wheel set makes a lot more sense. It'll add a lot more functionality here, and yeah, I would just love to see what they can come up with. Again, it seems like such a Nintendo thing to do, and Nintendo's always about finding new controller innovations. And this seems like one that is just a no-brainer when you look at it in hindsight. Now, there is one thing here on top of this that I was going to ask you about, because it sounds like, according to the patent, as broken down again by Taker666, it mentions the potential use of like trackballs or touch panels instead of like a typical scroll wheel. And all of those would feel quite a bit different from each other. Like, for instance, if they use a touch panel, you wouldn't really be able to replicate force feedback within it. So
right.
I'm kind of wondering what direction they're ultimately going to end up taking with this.
So I know what I think I would prefer in terms of what I think would be most interesting, and that's a touch interface. Just because we've seen through various laptops and the Vita and things like that how precise a touch interface can actually be. And I think it would just feel a little more. I don't know. It would feel more interesting. It'll feel a little more futuristic than just having a scroll wheel, at the top right corner of the controller. That's just personally what I would prefer, but I think any one of those could work equally well.
I mean, that does make the most sense. It would add no moving components, which is a good thing. Although controllers already have numerous of those, I guess that may not be a huge deal. But yeah, it would seem to be maybe a little bit more elegant. So you wouldn't have stuff like gumming up the wheels potentially. Or if you remember, how trackballs used to look on mice, like those were disgusting.
Yeah, exactly.
The touch panel does seem like it would make the most sense, but the problem with that then is, they would lose. I think they would essentially lose any kind of haptic feedback. I guess they could do something similar to what Valve is doing with their touch panels on their Steam controller, but even that isn't quite the same as having a wheel that actually resists movement or stops or offers that kind of direct level of feedback.
Right, and it may not need to have haptic feedback because this patent also does have a right-hand analog stick. So you could use that for the things that you need kind of physical feedback for, and then I've never really had any complaints about the C stick on the new 3DS. I know it wasn't what a lot of people were expecting, but I've never really complained about it. I haven't really had any control issues, even though there's no actual feedback. It's essentially like a little laptop analog nub. But I've had no problems with it, so I really wouldn't mind seeing something like that come back on whatever this actually is.
Yeah, that's a question, right? So do you think? What's your inclination? Do you think this is for the next handheld, or do you think this might be for the next console?
Well,
or do you have a preference?
Well, originally I would have thought it was for the next console, but the fact that this is using, at least so far, this is using circle pads and not analog sticks makes me think of the 3DS. In that case, then I would err on the side of handheld. But we also know that the original version of the Wii U gamepad that was shown at E3 first, the prototype version, has circle pads instead of analog sticks. So that in the end, that doesn't really mean a whole lot.
And that actually brings up a good point too, real quick, because images shown in patents very rarely resemble the final product. Yeah. I've seen a lot of people already freaking out about how there's only 2 buttons on here.
Right.
That literally means nothing.
Yeah. So, that's just. I think that's more of just an example than anything. Exactly, just because it has 2 buttons here in the patent doesn't mean it's going to only have 2 buttons in the final version. I hope it's for the console or for the NX, just because as I said at the beginning of this, if it is, then that means that the Wii U software and functionality isn't going anywhere, and that's something that I want to see from the NX is Wii U compatibility, because the Wii U has had such an unfortunately short life, and will have had a short life when all is said and done. But I think there's a lot of potential in its library. I think there's a lot of potential in the Wii U gamepad still. So I don't want to see the Wii U gamepad and functionality just die such a quick death. So I am hoping that this is, a patent for the NX controller, just because I want to see Wii U functionality in there.
Yeah, that could be, especially with a game like Mario Maker, which actually finally makes good use of the gamepad. And they want to keep that series going. Having a touch interface is almost a requirement.
Yeah, exactly.
Although, I still think they could go with a multiple form factor route, and maybe have the handheld function as a stand-in for a controller on the NX. But ultimately,
that's true too.
I have a feeling. I think this could end up on both their next handheld and their next console. I mean, we've already seen Nintendo, as you mentioned, with the C-Stick or the analog nub, whatever they call it, on the 3DS. They've already taken features from their console and put it onto the handheld. So, and it sounds like, especially with Nintendo wanting to maintain more parity between handheld and consoles moving forward, if you go off a lot of statements, I'd actually be surprised if this doesn't end up in both versions, assuming it comes to either of them. So.
Yeah, I could totally see that happening, and I wouldn't mind either.
Yeah, no, I think it's promising. Like, I really do like anytime Nintendo adds or any company adds a new interface, I always get a little bit excited. Sometimes it goes nowhere, as with like Nintendo's analog triggers or with the clickable analog triggers. Even though I really did like those, they very few developers actually took use of it.
Yeah.
But I could see a lot of like really good practical applications for this. I guess it really isn't like super exciting in the same way like motion controls or a touchscreen is. I think it'd be a really elegant way of accessing some game features and just adding subtle improvements to games to just enhance the experience a little bit better than what they are currently. Alright, well, I think that about wraps up for us here. So thanks, guys, for watching. If you liked the discussion, make sure to like and follow us on Facebook and Twitter at GameXplain, which you can find links to in the description below. It's a good way to keep up to date on everything we post. And, of course, keep an eye on GameXplain for more on potential Nintendo patents, Nintendo NX, and other things gaming as well. Alright, thanks, guys. Bye.